brief overview on how to navigate through the current resources that have been made available to the business owners in the Downriver region. There's a lot of information that has come out over the past week from Washington to Lansing to locally here at Wayne County as well. And a lot of these new resources are designed to keep our small businesses open and in business during this crisis. So there's a lot of information we're going to go through today. And I just want to kind of say that no one person's going to have all the answers. I know a lot of people have been telling me this is new to them. They've never dealt with anything like this. Well, this is new for everyone. Nobody has really dealt with a situation like this. There's a lot of new programs, new resources, and new laws that have been put into place to help our business community really navigate through these difficult times. So my message is that we are all in this together. We're all learning, and by coming together, we're going to overcome this challenge as one united Downriver community. So we need to remain positive. I know we all have a lot of hope for our future, and this is just a temporary moment in time. I really do believe that this is going to make our community much, much stronger and unite us all. So please know, again, for those of you who just joined, I can see there's more people coming on. This is Ron Hendrix, President and CEO of the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber. And I just want you to know that we are here for you. The Chamber is 100% committed to serving our small business community. Of course, throughout this difficult time, we are one family, and we're united, and we're going to get through this together. So what I want to do is to kick us off, kind of go through some housekeeping things here. Number one, this call is designed for the small business community and nonprofits. There's a lot of things that are happening at the corporate level, especially with the CARES Act that was just signed into law by President Trump on Friday. We're not going to cover the corporate level matters. We're focusing on small businesses and nonprofits today. When you look at you should have a dashboard for this webinar. This is a webinar, so I'm hoping that everyone is able to see what's on your screen there. Right now, it is it's really an e-blast that was sent out from the Chamber listing all the resources that we have. And again, what you need to, sorry, I'm looking through a bunch of information as I'm speaking. So this again, it's a new thing for all of us. But you need to, if there's any way possible, please make sure that you are looking at the screen as we go through this information. It's beneficial, yes, to hear it on a phone call, but it's a lot more beneficial if you can actually look at a screen and see what it is that we're talking about. So if possible, please get on a screen. There's also on your dashboard there, you can raise your hand if you have a question. And then once you're called on, we would have to unmute you. And then I believe you have to unmute yourself. There's a little button that probably looks like a microphone. If you click that, you should be able to unmute yourself. We will be having a time after each category that we're going to be hoping to answer some questions. But like I said earlier, I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. But what we can do is if we don't have an answer to your question, we can find an answer by reviewing the laws and resources a little bit more closely. Or I can reach out. If I don't know, I can reach out to my contacts in Washington and Lansing and get a better answer for you. So again, part of the goal is today to help you navigate through these resources and then get the answers to the questions that you have during this difficult time. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. And Jessica Pinto is on the line, is our Vice President of Membership Services with the Chamber. She's going to be helping me to facilitate the Q&A portion of this call. So what you'll need to do is, I believe on your dashboard, there's a chat option. When you have a question, and again at the end of each category, please type your question in there, and then Jessica will read your question off at the appropriate time, and we'll do our best to answer those questions for you. I also want to just take a moment to acknowledge a couple of people. Number one, of course, our key partners at the U.S. Chamber, the Michigan Chamber, and SBA and others. But Mike Cole is on the line too. Mike's the CEO of the Belleville Chamber. Thank you so much, Mike, for your partnership. It's one thing is all of the chambers of commerce in our region and actually throughout the nation have been very united throughout this time to ensure that our small business community is getting what they need. And we have always been a united group, but the Chamber of Commerce Federation has really come together in a big way, and I'm really excited to see that happen. So exciting time. So thank you again, Mike, for your partnership. Also, a lot of these acts and resources and things like that are going to require you to speak to some different people, such as your CPAs. Your banking institutions, different organizations like that, especially when it comes to the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. And we're going to be talking specifically about tax credits. So you're going to need to reach out to a CPA to ensure that you're handling that correctly. And that most likely they're going to be helping you through that to make sure that you're getting those tax credits, reimbursements with the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. And we have some CPAs on the line that are chamber members, beginning with Paul Jocks of Jackson Associates CPA. I believe that Jerry McAdams with McTax Services is on the line from Allen Park. And then Yo and Yo CPAs, I believe somebody is on the line as well from Yo and Yo. So thank you, and I want to thank Paul Jocks, who sent me some information this morning as well to assist with navigating through some of this, the IRS guidance that we've been receiving. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and again, I'm going to kind of go through this section by section, but we're going to look, what we're going to do in helping to guide me through this today is we're going to look through this recent e-blast that went out to our membership on Friday following the passing of the CARES Act, which we're going to be talking a great deal about. But this is what it looks like. Everyone in our membership should have received this. If you did not receive it, we can forward that to you. But this is a very important resource that you're going to want to have. It has all the up-to-date resources, guidance on executive orders, and different things like that as of Friday. So please make sure that you have this with you. So scrolling through, we're going to begin with a new and mandatory update required for federal labor law posters. Some of you might be getting this poster from your payroll company, such as Paycheck, Prime Pay, ADP, one of those. But this is not a recommendation. It's mandatory that you post this labor law poster according to the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act, effective April 1st through December 31st, 2020. This is what the poster looks like. So again, this has to be downloaded and printed out and posted in your place of work along with all of your regular labor law posters. Obviously, right now we are on a stay home, stay safe executive order from the governor. So the rules right now, you can see right here, is that during the stay-at-home order, employers should post it on the internet or email it to all employees. So to abide by this, just to give you an example of what the chamber did to abide by this order, I last week emailed a copy of this poster to all of our chamber staff, notifying them of their rights as employees of the chamber under the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act, and then also asking them if they had any questions. Following the lifting of the executive order to stay home and when the chamber office reopens, this will have to be printed out and posted along with our regular labor law posters. So please make sure that you follow this. This is federal law. It's not a recommendation. And if you click on this link here, you can get a copy of the poster. Any questions on that? And Jessica, I'm going to turn to you to see if you see any questions that are being typed out.
No questions so far.
Okay. Okay, so that's pretty simple. So we're going to move on, and we're going to be talking about that poster a little bit more as we navigate through these resources. The next resource that is very important, especially as we can't obviously conduct in-person meetings. A lot of the small business community, they want to know what webinars and seminars are available to them right now to help them to navigate these new laws and executive orders, and also find the resources that are available. Those are being made available on a daily basis to you. So you can read through a lot of this, but we're providing available webinars from the Small Business Association, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, the United States Chamber, the Michigan Chamber, and many, many others. So if you click on this link, it's going to take you to the Chamber's Facebook page, which looks like this. And you can see we're posting on almost probably 2 or 3 times a day a listing of upcoming webinars. And I just want to make sure you guys can see this. Yes, you can. Okay. So you can see today at 3 p.m. is the legal compliance strategies and best practices during the pandemic related to layoffs, a reduction in workforce, and furloughs being conducted by Clark Hill, which is a labor law organization of attorneys. So you can click on that link and go to their webinar. And then on March 31st, tomorrow, is an employment law update on the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. So you can find those links. Also, there's some additional webinars here from the Small Business Development Center. These are all pre-recorded. So if you click on these, you can download them and easily access those for free as a member of the Southern Wayne County Chamber. This one is from SCORE. So you can see all the different topics here, a lot of very important webinars. So I do want to encourage everyone to stay up to date, follow the Chamber Facebook page closely as these webinars become available. And most of them will be complimentary, especially during this critical time. Going back, also I want to call out to your attention that we do have these 3 webinars here that were made available to our members, again, free of charge by the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. The first one is dealing with remote work and legal concerns. The next one, what employers need to know about the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. That's an excellent webinar. That's going to go through the details of that act because I know there's a lot of confusion about that act. It's a very, again, a very big law, and you need to know as an employer what's being covered in that. And then also the unemployment benefits during COVID-19 webinar. So what you'll do is if you click on this link here, it takes you to the Michigan Chamber website. And let's see if that works so I can show you. But again, these webinars are complimentary, but what you do need to do as a member of the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber, actually, I'm going to go back because it doesn't look like it's loading. But what you'll need to do is you'll need to create an account. There's no charge to create an account, so just log in, create a username and a password, and you'll be able to log in to the Michigan Chamber of Commerce website and access those webinars free of charge. It's just, for now, just those 3 webinars that are related to the coronavirus. So please take advantage of that. That's something that we negotiated with our partners at the Michigan Chamber, and we want to make sure that you are all taking advantage of those free resources. Any questions before I move on? Any questions on webinars?
No questions on webinars, but Paul Jock just put a note here just to let everyone know that the U.S. Department of Labor does have some FAQs on their website for the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act.
Very good. And actually, we're going to cover that as well. Thanks, Paul, for pointing that out. There's a link. There should be a link to that in this e-blast that we're going to be going through. Once we get to the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act, there should be a link for guidance. So the next section, again, this is a new and mandatory order, not a recommendation, an order from the Wayne County Local Health Officer. And I believe this was put in place as of 7 p.m. on March 26th, which would have been last Thursday. but essentially saying no child care or non-child care businesses and entities in the Wayne County Local Health Department jurisdiction remaining open under the governor's executive order must develop and implement a daily screening procedure for all staff upon reporting to work site. So basically, if you are considered an essential business under the governor's executive order or the Department of Homeland Security's guidance, which is another thing we'll cover as we move on down the list here, you have to abide by this order and implement a daily screening procedure for all staff as they report to the work site. Let me see if I believe I had that pulled up here. This is a copy of the order for everyone to see. The other reason I want you to see this is because this has to be printed by the employer and it has to be posted at every entrance to your business. It has to be made publicly available for your employees to see, as well as the general public. It says that specifically in this order. So a link to this order is in that e-blast that we were just looking at. Again, this has to be printed and posted at every entrance to your business. So looking specifically at what this order says right here, develop and implement a daily screening procedure for all staff upon reporting to work sites. So the details of this, and you know, you can read it. It's right here. You have to ask each employee if they have had symptoms of fever, cough, shortness of breath, sore throat, or diarrhea. You have to perform by using a touchless, contactless thermometer. You have to conduct temperature checks in lieu of verbal confirmation. It looks like that's a recommendation there, but you do have to confirm that they do not have a fever. Ask if the employee has had close contact in the last 14 days with an individual diagnosed with coronavirus, and ask if the employee has traveled via airplane internationally or domestically in the last 14 days. If the answer is yes, the specific order lists out down here that they have to be quarantined for a certain amount of time before they can return to work. Again, it's very important that you read through this order. This is an order from the Wayne County Health Officer. Again, it's not a recommendation, it's a mandatory order, and it's an indefinite order, so there's no end date as of now. But again, this has to be posted at every entrance to your building. Any questions on that?
No questions.
Okay. Next, we are moving on to the new CARES Act, and it is called the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. This is history in the making. The largest in terms of financially, the largest bill that's ever been passed in the history of our nation. I think somebody said it was either two or three times the size of the New Deal, which is just absolutely massive. This bill or actually law now, is designed to keep people on the payrolls. They're trying to reduce unemployment claims and layoffs, and it's really designed to keep people working at small businesses on the payroll, but also help small businesses to survive the current economic situation that we're going through. This is a huge, huge bill. Like I had said before, there's a lot of details, a lot of aspects to this bill. Again, this is a small business call, so we're gonna focus on the small business impact of this bill. But let me go through it section by section, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions here. I've been getting a lot of questions about this bill already via email and phone calls. First off, there's been some changes to the Small Business Administration disaster assistance loans, otherwise known as economic injury disaster loans, or EIDL. Some people speak really, really quick, and you think they're saying Idaho loan or EIDL loan. It's EIDL, EIDL. We're going to cover the specifics of this as we actually get down into the SBA section of this discussion today. But mostly a lot of people are going to be asking, I think, about this $10 cash advance that can be forgiven if spent on certain qualifying expenses. So we're going to cover this in a little bit. But I want to move on to the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses. And again, this is really designed to keep employees on the payrolls. But this program is significant because it's not just for small businesses, but it also extends now to the self-employed individual, self-contractor or independent contractors, and the gig economy, which the gig economy is basically independent contractors. So this is a $350 billion nationwide program designed to prevent workers from losing their jobs due to the economic impact of COVID-19. So we're going to go through briefly some of the specifics of the Paycheck Protection Program. But the first question that I always get is, how much can a small business receive? Right here, small businesses can receive their average monthly payroll expenses times 2.5. So on average, that's going to look like probably about 8 weeks of cash flow for operational expenses. The great thing about this is that almost for most businesses, almost 100% of these loans will be forgivable. So essentially meaning that they're going to become grants. There's specific qualifications that we're going to go through, and I'm going to show you guys a very easy to follow form that looks a lot more attractive than all these words here. So don't worry, we're going to cover that. But basically, the rules are the employer has to maintain their payroll. You can't lay anybody off. And then the portion of the loans used for the portion of the loans that you receive from this program can be used for payroll, interest on mortgage obligations, rent, and utilities. And again, if you make those kinds of expenses using this loan money, most of that, if not all of it, will be forgiven by the federal government. The bill is retroactive to February 15th of 2020. So the idea is that if your company had laid off any employees since February 15th, 2020, you now have the opportunity to put them back on your payroll, and you will qualify for receiving this money. I do want to also mention that the amount of money that you can receive from the Paycheck Protection Program, again, is your average monthly payroll times 2.5, but the maximum amount is $10 million. So you can't extend, you can't go beyond $10 million. So what's the eligibility here? Who's qualified? Small businesses as defined by the Small Business Administration, which is typically 500 employees. That's what makes up a small business. But there's, depending on certain sectors of the economy, it could be up to 1,500 businesses. The great thing about this new law is that it's really designed specifically to help those in the food service industry. I know we have a lot of restaurant and eatery owners that are on the phone today, so this is important to you. So any of our local food service industry employers, you're eligible up to 500 employees per location. So if you think of like a Kroger or a large retailer like that, they're eligible up to 500 employees per location. The other thing that I mentioned earlier, this program is available now to sole proprietors, the self-employed, and independent contractors, which is very, very important. The other part of this new law is that unemployment insurance benefits is now also available to sole proprietors, the self-employed, and independent contractors. That has never been the case. State law does not allow that, but under this new federal law, the CARES Act, again, the self-employed and independent contractors are now qualified for unemployment insurance. So the other thing I want to mention here is how will small businesses access the funding. So loans will be made available through SBA-approved lenders. But the other part of this new law is that non-SBA lenders may also be approved by the United States Treasury and the Small Business Administration. So essentially, according to the law, any lender could be approved now to make these loans available. I can tell you that this law was signed. It was signed into law on Friday. So as of today, I've talked to several different lenders, and when I say lenders, I'm talking about banks, credit unions, organizations like that. They are not yet ready to distribute these funds because they're still trying to work on a plan to implement this. But I believe that the lenders are going to be ready to implement this plan very quickly. So what I would do is I would encourage you to contact your local lender. So whether that's a bank or a credit union, reach out to your lender and tell them that you are very interested in accessing funding through the Paycheck Protection Program as a part of the CARES Act. And then they will be able to notify you when that's available and how to proceed through the application. So again, I want to stress that the application is going to be done through your local lender, not through the SBA, not through the federal government. This money is being made available to local lenders. The other great part about this is that lenders will defer fees, principal, and interest for these loans for no less than 6 months and no more than 1 year. So this law is really designed to give our business community, small business community, access to immediate working capital or operational expenses. So that's really, you'll see a lot of these different kinds of fees and principals and interest and things like that are going to be waived for a lot of these different programs for a certain amount of time. Looking at the debt relief portion of this, the Small Business Administration under this law has received, I don't remember the exact number, I think it was $17 billion from the federal government now to pay for current existing SBA loans that different businesses have for the next 6 months. So my understanding is that if you have a current SBA loan for some other reason, not involving coronavirus, that your interest and principal will be paid by the SBA under this law for the next 6 months, which is great news. So moving on to unemployment, the law grants $250 billion in expansion of unemployment benefits. This is very significant. Many of you know what's happening in the state of Michigan under the governor's executive order that has been put into place, expanding unemployment benefits to employees that have been put on temporary leave or laid off due to closures that have resulted from coronavirus executive orders from the governor. So this, and I'm sorry, the other part of that executive order from the governor is that unemployment benefits have been extended from 20 weeks to now 26 weeks in the state of Michigan. This new law takes it way farther than that. The maximum weekly benefit for unemployment insurance in the state of Michigan is $362. This law increases that by an additional $600 per week. So technically, if you're receiving the maximum amount of unemployment insurance benefits, you're eligible to receive $962 a week. Some of the criticism that we did here that didn't stop the bill from being passed, but something that you'll just be aware of as an employer is that some of your employees could potentially make a little bit more on unemployment than they do while they're working. If in the case that an employee refuses to come back to work after they've been called back to work because of that, you will just need to notify the unemployment insurance that they have been offered work and it was refused. So as an employer, please know that. The other part of this bill is that, again, the governor currently has an executive order in place that the maximum amount of weeks for unemployment insurance is 26. This bill law extends that by an additional 13 weeks of unemployment insurance benefits. All of this expires at the end of 2020, so December 31st, 2020. When it comes to tax, we do have, many of you have already seen this. This has kind of been the big thing in the news, the tax rebate checks, $1,200 per individual with a Social Security number, and $500 per child with a valid Social Security number. So the average American family of four will be receiving $3,400 in tax rebate checks from the Treasury. Secretary Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury, believes that most Americans will see those checks sometime within 3 weeks of this bill being signed into law. The other big thing when it comes to and you can, if you read through that, you can, going back to the tax rebate checks, you can see the salary thresholds and things like that. So not everybody is going to get the maximum tax rebate check. The other thing I want to mention to employers is that this law delays the payment of Social Security employment payroll taxes for the year 2020. So I'm going to give you a caution, but let me explain this first. Again, Social Security payroll taxes between now and December 31st, 2020, the payment of those can be deferred. 50% of that will be due by December 31st, 2021, and the remaining amounts will be due December 31st, 2022. So again, the idea is to give businesses immediate access to additional working capital to ensure that you stay in business. Kind of the warning here is that if you do choose to defer your tax payments, keep in mind you're going to have to pay your payroll taxes in 2021 and 2022 in addition to your 2020 payroll taxes. So please be aware, your payroll taxes are not being forgiven, they're just being deferred for the year 2020. So let me just show you these couple of things and then we'll take some questions. Right here is, this is a really good fact sheet. So I want to show this to you. Here it is. The Coronavirus Emergency Loans for Small Businesses Guide. This is, again, the CARES Act, the Payroll Protection Program, the $350 billion Payroll Protection Program. This is a very attractive sheet that, again, going back to this page, if you click on this button here, it takes you directly to this sheet. So this will tell you, number one, am I eligible? Well, here's the bullet points. If you're a small business with fewer than 500 employees, that's according to the SBA size standard. All 501c3s are eligible that are fewer than 500 employees. I know that we do have a couple of 501c3s that are on the phone today, so I'm glad to hear that this is available to you. It's not available to 501c6 nonprofit organizations. The Chamber is a 501c6, so we are not qualified to receive this funding, but C3s are. Again, individuals who operate as a sole proprietor or an independent contractor, and then also veteran organizations, C19s. So you can kind of look through and look at a lot of this, but also another great section for you to review. What will lenders be looking for? One of the big things is, number one, you have to prove that you haven't laid off any employees, and if you did lay off any employees following February 15th, that you'll be bringing those employees back onto your payroll, because again, this law is retroactive to February 15th of this year. And then there's also some requirements that you have to show that you've been economically impacted by the coronavirus situation. So, Forms 1099s, tax filings, things like that, kind of your, standard application forms. So please take a moment to read through that when you have time. And then the other thing, I kind of covered this, but how much can a small business borrow that is eligible? And again, it's your payroll costs, your average payroll monthly costs times 2.5 with a maximum of $10 million. So this is going to help you to calculate that number. Right here, this is the formula that in order for you to calculate payroll costs is the sum of included payroll costs, which is this information right here. So you want to review all this, figure out what your included payroll costs are for a month, and then you subtract your sum of excluded payroll costs. So one of the examples of excluded payroll costs is that any employee making an annual salary of $100,000 per year does not qualify for payroll costs. So you would have to subtract that. The other things, payroll taxes, retirement taxes, income taxes, things like that. So you figure that out, and then that equals your payroll costs times 2.5, and then that's the maximum loan dollar amount that you can receive, again, not exceeding $10 million. The other thing is there's a formula here for non-seasonal employees and seasonal employees, because a lot of our employers do have seasonal employees versus non-seasonal employees. So this is very important to review. And then the other part of this is a lot of people ask, will the loan be forgiven? And the answer is yes, if you use the loan for qualifying expenses. And potentially up to 100% of the loan can be forgiven. So essentially this can become a grant from the federal government for your business. I want to mention also these are federally guaranteed loans, so no personal guarantees and different things like that are not required. This is all guaranteed by the federal government. So you can kind of review this and see what is forgivable. Payroll costs, again, not exceeding that $100,000 annual salary number. Interest on mortgage obligations, rents in a leasing agreement, and payments on utilities. And then also for borrowers with tipped employees, additional wages paid to those employees are forgivable. Down here is a little formula again to kind of determine roughly how much of your loan will be forgivable. And I want to say that for many of our downriver small business employers, most of it, if not all of this loan, would most likely be forgivable and would convert into a grant for you. If you did want to read a detailed summary of the law, that is available right here in this button. So Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you for questions on the CARES Act.
So far, no questions have come in. Again, if you guys have questions, please type them in under the chat window. But we do have a note from Paul Jack saying, my understanding is it is the employer's part, 6.2% that is deferred.
Very good. Thanks, Paul, for that. And Paul, if you don't mind, I'm going to unmute you, Paul, if you'd like to say anything on that to further elaborate.
Yeah, we're just kicking around a little bit here. It's the 6.2% match that the employer pays in for their share of the overall Social Security tax that is eligible for the deferral. The payroll taxes for federal withholding from the employee and the employee's portion of the Social Security is still going to have to be paid in, but the employer's portion is the part that can be deferred.
Very good. Mike Cole, I see that your hand is raised, so I'm going to see if I can unmute you. Okay, you're unmuted, Mike, if you'd like to unmute yourself and say something.
Sorry, I was pressing the wrong damn button. Hi, guys. Actually, I didn't raise my hand. I hit that by accident, but I wanted to make a note as well on if you do go to this loan and after things go back to normal, employees must stay on payroll for an additional 8 weeks. There's another caveat there. So you can't just take this loan and 2 months later get it forgiven and let 3 or 4 of these people go. So just there's a small little thing that I read in the summary as well, that after the whole thing is over, to get that loan forgiven, the 8 weeks, another additional 8 weeks has got to be met.
That's a good point, Mike. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And again, the goal of this program is to keep people employed. The government is not looking for people to be laid off. That is the whole purpose of this, or one of the main purposes of the law. Looking at raised hands, we have Stephanie Bass, who is unmuted. If you want to unmute yourself, Stephanie.
Sorry, I hit that by accident.
Okay. Next, we have Renee from MI Custom Signs. Renee, you've been unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question, I actually did type a couple of questions, so I'm not sure why Jessica's not seeing them. And it may have just been answered. I did not see anything about that extra 8 weeks, and was asking if after the 8 weeks is completed, if you still don't have enough work for all of these employees, can you then lay them off, or can they go on unemployment at that point? Does anyone know the answer to that?
I'll look into that regarding the additional 8 weeks, but from a legal standpoint, once you're beyond the requirements of the law, there's nothing that can prevent you from laying off employees, because as long as you're doing it according to the law. So what I'll do is, Renee, is I'll look that up in regards to the additional 8 weeks, and then send out more information on that.
All right. The other question that I had posed is, it appears to me that subcontractors can either apply for assistance on their own, or they can actually be part of the business expense that the current businesses or employer, if you will, or it's not really an employer, but we routinely use subcontractors who are now not getting used. And so it looked like we could continue to pay them, or they could do that on their own. Is that accurate? Like there's a choice to be made?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's if the independent according to the law, if the independent contractor doesn't have work, they can apply for unemployment insurance benefits. They can also apply if they own a business. They can apply for the Paycheck Protection Program loans, in addition to the SBA loans, which we haven't yet covered. And then there's also MEDC loans that are now available to small business owners. So there's a lot of different options for independent contractors now, if work is not available to them. Does that help, Renee?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's the way I was reading it.
We do have, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If you are sending questions, I think you need to select to send it to organizers and panelists if you have that option. But I did just get a couple questions from Sandy Spradlin asking, are owners of small businesses eligible for payroll, and are employees coming back on payroll have to stop unemployment?
That's a good question. So let me take on the first one. That's my understanding of that, and we'll have to re-examine this a little bit closer, but my understanding is that you as the owner can be considered an employee of the company. So your payroll would be covered under this law. Again, don't quote me on that. I need to find out more. I can reach out to our contacts in DC to confirm that. But your payroll would, as an employee of your company, would fall under this umbrella. And then what was the second part of that question?
The second part of it was about employees coming back onto payroll if they have to stop unemployment.
So the laws are, if you laid somebody off after February 15th of this year, according to the Paycheck Protection Program, you have to bring them back on your payroll in order to qualify for this loan. Is that what you're asking? I'm hoping that that's what Sandy's asking. Let me see if I can unmute her. Okay, no, she's actually not. She doesn't have access to a microphone, it looks like. So I'm hoping that answers Sandy's question. And are there any others, Jessica?
No other questions, but again, if you sent one, please make sure it says to organizers and panelists. Otherwise, I wouldn't receive the message in the chat. So again, please try sending it again.
Okay. So I'm going to go through the list. There's a lot of raised hands. So I'm going to begin with Mark Lyons. And Mark, you're unmuted. Okay, next I'm going to go to Brett Chittum. Brett, you're unmuted.
Hey, can you hear me okay, Ron?
Yep.
All right. So, hey, one of the questions I'm getting from some clients on this loan for the payroll protection loan is that they're only, right now, banks and SBA is only approving for SIC and NAIC code 72, which is accommodations and food services, that they're only approving those loans now. Do you know any more about that?
I don't, because the exact list of lenders that are going to be providing this Paycheck's Protection Program has not been released. And as a matter of fact, what I've been told as of this morning is that those lenders are not yet ready to make those loans available.
Okay.
So I do plan on hearing more about that later today or early tomorrow. But as of right now, my understanding is that they're still working on implementing a strategy, and the SBA and others have been on the phone with a lot of different banks and credit unions over the past couple of days, making sure they understand what's happening, and also, getting the implementation plan in place for these loans. So what I would do is encourage you to contact your bank or your credit union or whoever your lender is. And I can show you real quick, I meant to do this, but if you go to the Chamber website, and if you click on membership directory here, we can actually give you a list of, here's our bank.
I already have them printed.
Banks and credit unions. So credit unions are down here. Yep. So if you click on bank, yep, they'll always use chamber members. So here's your banks, and if you click on one, you can actually get specific contact information, like Comerica Bank is Nancy Orban. You want to speak directly with them. Tell them that you're a member of the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber, and then just tell them you're inquiring about the Paycheck Protection Program and obtaining the loan. From a lender. So
yeah, I'll check. Yep. I'll have a couple of my clients were asking that question because we were talking about it this morning. So wanted to make sure. Thank you for that, sir. You're doing an awesome job, man.
Thanks. All right. Next, we're going to move on to.
Can I jump in?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yep.
If the lender is already an SBA approved lender, then they're eligible to work with this program right now. If they're not an approved lender, then the SBA can authorize that financial institution to become an approved lender under this program. But the couple that I've looked into, I've just gone to the bank's website to see if they have a SBA program, and those, in my mind, are the ones that are able to act on this right now. But you're right, because this was just passed on Friday, the banks don't have a program in place. What I'm passing along to my clients is the SBA application. I believe it's Form 5 under the Economic Disaster Loan, and that is going to probably be similar to or identical to the information that they're going to ask under this Paycheck Protection Program.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay, thank you, Paul. We're going to move on to Michelle Leonard.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was calling to find out, we have a church and a daycare, so we are a nonprofit, 501(c), and we have currently laid off our daycare staff because of, lack of children coming into the daycare. But we do not have a UIA number, which it is being required when you fill out unemployment. Do you know if they are eligible to do that, or?
Yes, your 501c3 needs to contact the unemployment insurance agency and obtain a UIA number. What they'll do is they will mail that to you. They can't give that to you through email or over the phone. So the day that you contact them, they will send it in the mail, and you should get it in a couple of days.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now, church, religious organizations, I don't believe qualify for this program that we're talking about, but the 501c3 daycare, I believe you mentioned, should.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome. Next is Stephanie Bass, which, Stephanie, you have to unmute yourself. All right, now I'm going to move on to Michaela Green. Okay, Michaela Green, will come back to you. Edward Nykiel, and you'll have to unmute yourself.
While we wait for them to unmute themselves, Ron, you may have gotten questions that went to only you because you're the presenter of the this presentation. So check your chat window because you may have gotten some questions that I wouldn't have.
Okay. I don't see any, but I just see raised hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now
Ron,
there's yep, go ahead. We can hear you.
yeah, like was mentioned, I did send the question earlier, but I guess it just went to the webinar staff, and that was the only option I had.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's new software. We're getting used to it.
All right, just my only question was, does the you were talking about what the Wayne County officer issued as an order. Is that something that's typical of other counties in Michigan? Is that something that was mandated by the governor that counties do that? Or is that just unique to Wayne County?
My understanding is that it is unique to Wayne County, mostly because I believe Wayne County is considered one of the hot spots in the United States right now in terms of the spread of the virus. So my understanding, this was a decision that was made by the Wayne County Health Officer, and it's unique to this county.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks. Next we have Chelsea Kalura. And there we go.
Hi, Ron.
Hey, Chelsea.
I might have missed this, but how will you know if the loan will be forgiven? Is there a procedure?
Yeah, there is. So I'm gonna take you back to, if I can find it again. Here it is. So basically, it's if you follow this formula here, where it says, will this loan be forgiven? If your loan is being used for payroll expenses under, the qualifications, interest on mortgage payments, rent on a leasing agreement, or paying utilities, and then also for additional wages to tipped employees, which is mostly restaurants, your loan will be forgiven, not exceeding the principal. So realistically, I think for most of our small business community, most of your loan, if not all of it, will be forgiven, and it turns into a grant. But you need to, you can't quote me on that, but I'm going on what the federal government has given us, and it's right here. So when you do contact your SBA approved lender, which is most likely going to be your banking institution or credit union, to apply for a loan through the Paycheck Protection Program, you'll want to have a private conversation with them about this. And you can, you have your calculator available and follow these formulas here to determine roughly how much of your loan is going to be forgiven. And I think, like I said, for most of our members, it's going to be a significant amount, if not all of it.
Okay.
This is available. When you look at this e-blast I sent out on Friday, if you click on this link here, CARES Act FAQ for Business, that's available there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So we went through a lot of questions there, and we can come back. But what we're going to do is move on to the MEDC portion of this of today's discussion. And bear with me for a minute here. Okay. So about a week and a half ago, the state of Michigan and MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, announced the Michigan Small Business Relief Program, which is providing $20 million in support of small businesses that have been impacted in a negative way by the coronavirus and the economic situation. The program is broken up into two separate parts. The first part is a $10 million small business grants, and the second part are $10 million in small business loans. Each kind of, our state has been divided up into different sections, and for Wayne County, the program is going to be administered by the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. And the applications for these two programs, called the Small Business Relief Program, is being made available as of this week, the week of March 30th. So I'm going to begin with the grant program, because I think that a lot of our members have been really wondering, how do I get a grant so I don't have to pay it back? This is specifically for small businesses that have 50 or less employees. You can see the exact information here. The organization, the qualifications rather, limit grant funding to businesses with 50 or less employees who need working capital to support payroll expenses, rent, mortgage payments, utility expenses, and other similar expenses that occur in the ordinary course of business. You're going to see a common theme here for most of these loans and grants, probably all of them actually. The only qualified expenses are working capital. And when I say working or operational capital, I'm talking about payroll, rent, mortgage, and utility expenses. So the other part of that program is the loan program, and that is available to small businesses with 100 employees or less. And it's the same thing again, going towards working or operational capital. If you want more information on the small business loan program, that is located here. It's a PDF document. The small business grants program is located here, and that's a PDF document as well. Now, when it comes to applying for these two programs, which I think is what everyone wants to know, you click on this link here, and it's going to take you to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation website. And I wanted to show you this particularly because you may have friends or colleagues around the state that need to know how to apply for the MEDC Small Business Grant or Loan Program. And this is how they can do it on this page. So you have Saginaw here, Alpena's over here, Ann Arbor Spark, and then way down here is Wayne County. And it's under the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. You'll notice there it says application coming soon. So I want to take you to that specific website, which is right here. Hopefully everyone can see that. Let me mute that. So this is the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation COVID-19 site. And this is exactly where you're going to apply for either the grant or the loan program. And through that, again, through the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, it's the Small Business Relief Program. You can see that the application is not yet live, but when you sign up today, they will contact you and let you know when the application is live and ready to go. It's only $10 million per program. So as you know, it's going to go very quickly. I think the dollar amount for grants in Wayne County is $1.6 million. So the sooner you apply, the better. So I would highly recommend all of you sign up for this right now, or at least today after this webinar is over, get on their list. And then once the application goes live, which should be no later than April 1st of this week, you'll be able to apply using this website. So that's a quick run through of the Small Business Relief Program through the state of Michigan. And then what I'm gonna do is, I know there's more questions, so I'm gonna run through the Wayne County Small Business Loan Program. And that was just announced a few days ago as well. Wayne County, in partnership with TCF Bank, announced a $6 million low interest loan program specifically for small businesses. This is, again, a significant loan program, loans ranging from $5,000 to $50,000 for small businesses that meet the eligibility criteria in Wayne County. The great thing about these loans is that the interest rate is between 0 and 2%, which is a really great interest rate for small business owners. So we're happy to see that Wayne County did this. The eligibility and application is located right here where this button is. This one is unique because I'm going to show you real quick. It takes you to the TCF Bank website. And if you scroll down, it tells you the details of the program. It's a 12-month loan. I already mentioned the interest rate is 2% or less, and it's a $5,000 to $50,000 loan being used for business collateral, which is basically working capital or operation expenses. Here's the eligibility. Business that employs fewer than 100 employees. You can see what other eligibility is located there. But the steps to apply, the first thing you have to do, you don't submit an application online. You have to contact one of these banking center managers located here. And you'll see Chemical Bank, for those of you that don't know, Chemical Bank had purchased TCF, so they're together. So you need to contact one of these banking center managers. For the Southern Wayne County area, we have Belleville. Belleville branch is located here. Next, you have Southgate right here, Allen Park, and then Taylor. What you need to do is call them or email them and let them know that you are interested in applying for the Small Business Relief Loan Program through Wayne County, and they will get you set up and on your way to applying for that program. The next thing we're going to jump into is the very well-known Small Business Administration Economic Injury Disaster Loans, which have been made available to the state of Michigan over the past couple of weeks. So we'll kind of pause there, take a break, because I know there's some questions here. So I'm going to jump over to Jennifer Sullivan. And Jennifer, you're unmuted. All right, I'm going to go to Eric C., it says. Eric C.
Ron, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Ron, it's Eric from Motif Jewelers.
Hey, Eric, how's it going?
Very good. Thanks for doing this, by the way.
You're welcome.
I just want to touch on the SBA process. I don't know if anybody else did this or not, but on the SBA website, the federal government has an application that you can fill out and submit and you even put bank accounts and routing numbers in up there at the top, that yellow bar.
Yep.
So you can click that and you can apply right there. I don't know what it's going to link to. I mean, I got a confirmation number that I did the application appropriately, but
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to do. It did ask me if I wanted to participate in the $10,000 advance, which you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
that was all there. So at the end, they asked
Yep.
for the bank account and routing number. So it almost seemed like everybody
Yep.
would get approved, but you know, there's no bank really linked to that from what I saw.
So this is the reason they're asking you for that, Eric. The answer is no, not everyone will get approved for the SBA economic injury disaster loan. But under the new CARES Act legislation, my understanding is that the $10,000 cash advance is forgivable, and it will be sent to you almost immediately as they're determining whether or not you qualify for the SBA loan up to $2 million. While that period is happening, they're going to send you $10,000 as a cash advance that's forgivable. And my understanding is that from what I've heard, they're planning on sending those out almost immediately while you're waiting for approval. So I highly recommend everybody to get on there and apply and definitely work on getting that cash advance. But the $10,000 cash advance is forgivable if it's spent on paid leave, maintaining payroll, increased costs due to supply chain disruption, mortgage or lease payments, or repaying obligations that cannot be met due to revenue loss.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you talked about that or not, but I did that earlier today, and I just wanted to mention that. So.
Yeah. So this button right here, if you go to the SBA site, which I'll show you how to do that, this is where you would apply for the assistance. And like Eric said, they're going to ask you if you want to take advantage of the $10,000 cash advance. Now, again, my understanding, and don't quote me, is that my understanding is that they're sending those out very quickly to help businesses operate while they're deciding whether or not they're going to receive or they'll be eligible for the SBA economic injury disaster loan. Now, I want to caution everyone because that will have to be paid back unless you use that $10,000 cash advance for these exact expenditures. So it's not meant to replace lost profits. It's meant to pay these exact, qualifying expenditures: paid leave, payroll, supply chain disruption costs, mortgages or lease, or obligations that cannot be met due to revenue loss. So it sounds like, Eric, you applied and you're just waiting for an answer now.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for an answer. I checked the bank, the money's not there yet, so it wasn't that fast.
Okay. might take a day or two. But let me know, Eric. Let me know when you do get that cash advance, because I'd be interested to see how quick it's coming out.
Okay, I will. Good luck, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so let's talk about the Small Business Administration Economic Injury Disaster Loans. Again, these have been approved for about a week and a half now. These are small business loans through the SBA, so you have to be a small business with 500 or less employees to qualify. These are loans that can have a maximum term of 30 years, and the interest rate is 3.75 for small businesses and 2.75 for nonprofits. And there's been some significant changes that have been made to this program. Number one, I do want to say this, that the SBA loan program has always, it's been something that's been in place for many, many years, but it's always been used for natural disasters. It's never been used in a case of a virus or some type of pandemic. This is the first time in history that the president has authorized these kinds of loans to be used for a pandemic situation. So that all being said, there's been significant changes under the CARES Act to this program, and you can see what those are right here. Number one, loans can be made solely or based solely on credit scores. Loans available to all nonprofits, including 501c6s, which is good for 501c6s because they usually don't get included. But again, all nonprofits that meet the criteria of 500 or less employees are now qualified. Loans below $200,000 can be approved without a personal guarantee. That's pretty significant. And then the biggest part of this, as we had already mentioned, the EIDLE loan, which economic injury disaster loan it's called, you can request a $10,000 cash advance while the SBA is considering your application. Again, it can be forgiven if it's spent on paid leave, payroll, and then the mortgage, lease payments, basically operational expenses that are listed out there. So what you'll want to do is, if you're interested in the SBA EIDLE loan, is you will click on this button here, and that's going to take you to this application site, and you apply for assistance right there. And as you heard, Eric did that from Motif, and they did ask him if he would like to receive the $10,000 cash advance, but just caution, use it for only the qualified expenses, and then it may be forgivable. For more information on this, you need to reach out to the Small Business Administration. If you click on this link here, that's their Detroit office. But also I want to mention up here, it says, please review the details and qualifications of this loan. If you click on this little link here, it takes you to this site. And this right here is basically the qualifications and details of the EIDLE loans through the SBA. And it's very important that you review this and understand what this loan is, the interest rate. The good thing about these loans is that they can be long-term, up to 30 years, meaning that your principal is going to be low. So they're very manageable for small businesses, and the loans are up to $2 million. They're really based on a case-by-case situation. What questions do we have on the small business EIDLE loans? Do you see anything, Jessica? Oh, sorry, I had you muted.
No, it's okay. I do have a couple questions from Sandy Spradlin. She asked, can a business apply for both DEGX and federal? And then so if you want to answer that one first.
Yeah. So that's you have to be careful with that. I think that you obviously can apply for loans with different levels of government, but I think a lot of the criteria here says that you don't have loans that are available elsewhere, or you haven't received the loan from another organization. So if you do get approved for another loan with some other organization, you're going to most likely, you have to notify either the SBA or whoever else it is that you're applying for a loan with. Because once they find out you have a loan, they're going to use that available finances for another company that doesn't have access to that line of credit or whatever it is.
And then Sandy also asked, how do we document how we've used the money?
It's through your normal accounting procedures. So, Paul, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, that's the part that we're trying to get a handle on, but using your accounting software and making sure what you're submitting for these loan applications and later on the forgiveness requirements match up with what's in your accounting software or your accounting system, and especially with the income tax return that you have filed or will be filing.
Very good. Okay, we have some other hands that are raised. Jessica, do you have another one before I move on?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. Antoinette Worth. Okay, moving on. I'm going to try, Jennifer Sullivan again. I don't know if that's an old one but if you can unmute yourself, Jennifer.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. So, being that we're a restaurant, so this is kind of going back to what you spoke about earlier. With the loan to retain your workers, okay, to be able to pay them with tipped employees, because we have a lot of them that applied for unemployment the very first day, as soon as they heard Whitmer speak. They have kids at home, so they wanted to stay home. They're afraid to come to work. Even though we're trying to work, we're keeping over 20 some people employed. If we would get that loan on the tipped employees, how do we figure out, do we go by their average amount of tips to keep them on payroll, and then they would have to come off the unemployment? Do we tell them they have to get off unemployment and we're going to put them back on payroll even though they're not working? So that's what I don't understand with the tipped employees, how that exactly, how that works.
So looking at here, okay, so number one, yes, they do have to come back on payroll if they were laid off on or following February 15th of this year. According to the payroll protection plan or program, you have to bring them back on payroll. So specifically, it says for borrowers with tipped employees, additional wages to paid employees. Excuse me. What I'm going to do, Jennifer, is I'm going to look at the specific legislation and see if I can get a better understanding of this, and then I'll send it out to you.
All right, that'd be great.
Yeah, because it clearly it's talking about wages paid beyond tips, can be forgiven in this loan. But that's a good question about how do you include how do you add or calculate that with tips.
Right.
So let me find out, and then I'll get back with you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's so confusing. I'm so lost.
Well, we all are, so don't worry. We're all in this together. It's all new legislation, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to try Michaela Green again. Michaela, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question was, as far as unemployment goes, did you know if there was like a specific date where that would go into effect that sole proprietors or contractors are able to file and collect unemployment?
The CARES Act goes into law beginning, I believe, April 1st.
Okay.
So it'll be this Wednesday. But there might be specific regulations in regards to unemployment or sole proprietors where they can apply for unemployment the day it was signed into law. So let me find out more about that. Unless I don't know if Mike Cole's on the line. Mike.
Sorry if you can hear my kids. I have 2 small children, so
yeah, that's okay.
I apologize.
That's okay. Yeah. So let me look more into that, Michaela.
Okay.
I know that, like I said, the CARES Act goes into law April 1st. But I thought I remember reading somewhere that you can file as of the day it was signed into law. But if not, again, it goes into law April 1st, so that's only a couple days away.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to try Mark Lyons again. Mark, are you there? Okay, before I move on, Jessica, do you see any other questions?
No, no other questions.
Okay. Okay, so that's the idle loans. Again, there's a lot that's going into this, so I understand, if there's some confusion out there, and we'll do the best we can to get answers for you. So the next thing is the Michigan Stay Home, Stay Safe Executive Order that is currently set to expire on April 13th, but I know a lot of people have been hearing that most likely it's going to be extended. We don't know yet. As far as I know, I haven't been connected to the news in the past couple of hours, but it has not been extended as far as I know. But so the question is, who qualifies as an essential business? There's specific guidelines that have been released from the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity Agency, and that guidance is available right here. So if you click on this, it's under this updated section here, the guidance right there. If you click on that link, it takes you to this pamphlet directly from the Department of Homeland Security. And it tells you exactly who qualifies as an essential service in detail. So healthcare, there's all the detailed explanation of what an essential service is. Law enforcement, of course, food and agriculture, so restaurant, carry-out, and quick-serve food operations, that is an essential service. Food manufacturer employees, and then scrolling through the list here, energy, of course, water and wastewater, transportation and logistics, public works, communications, and information technology, and then others, critical manufacturing and others. This gives you great detail, so it really should help you to answer any questions. But if you still have questions and you don't know if you're an essential business, there's a couple of other resources that we've made available to our members. Number one, the United States Chamber of Commerce hosted a webinar with the first director of the Cyber Infrastructure and Security Agency, which is a division of Department of Homeland Security. They're the ones that issued this guidance. So if you want to view that webinar, you click right here on this link. It says click here, and you can access the webinar directly free, complimentary. The other way to contact the government directly through email, this email address right here will help you. If you email them directly, explain your business, they will be able to tell you whether or not you're considered an essential operation. So please review that. The other thing I want to mention is that there's a difference between essential business and essential employees. So again, looking at that guidance will help you determine whether or not you have essential employees. The big thing is, according to Governor Whitmer's executive order, you have to notify as of March 31st your employee in writing if they are considered an essential employee. So if you click on the state's guidance of FAQs for the executive order itself is located right here. But the other thing I have is if you have determined based on this guidance that you have essential employees, again, they have to be notified in writing. That can be done via email or printed letter. I have a copy of a sample letter that you can send to your essential employee. You have to follow these mandated rules. They're not recommendations. I don't know how enforcement is going to happen, but the chamber, of course, is never going to encourage you not to follow the mandates. So we want to provide you with the resources to follow these executive orders and these mandates. So if you need a copy of a sample letter to provide to an essential employee, tomorrow is the last day that until you have to provide them in writing a copy of that letter. So you can email me, Hendrix, it's RHINRICHS, as in Sam, at SWCRC.com. and then I can send you a copy of that letter. Very important information. The next thing is another big law, Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. This is, again, a very big, massive amount of legislation. So there's a couple of resources that we provided. Basically, in summary, what this act or this law does is it expands access to paid sick leave and family medical leave for employees of small businesses with 500 or less employees. So you as a small business employer are required to provide paid sick leave and to a certain extent, Family Medical Leave Act benefits to employees that have been impacted by the coronavirus, whether they're sick, they have a family member who's sick with coronavirus, or they have a child that is out of school and they need to provide childcare due to school closures as a result of coronavirus. Those things fall under the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. Located right here is a complimentary webinar that our friends at the Michigan Chamber have provided to us to help you to obtain guidance with the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. But the other resource that we have is a poster, which actually I'm going back to the beginning of this webinar. This poster right here is the one that you're required to post at your place of employment or to email to your employers prior to the reopening of your business. So this will help you to determine how to guide through this act. The other things that we have down here is a fact sheet for employees located right here, and a fact sheet for employers, and then a question and answer document. So I'm trying to go through this as simply as I can because this is a very complicated, or could be a complicated piece of legislation. So going to what I'm going to do is go to the poster first and kind of walk you through this. Listed down here are the reasons why an employee would take time off and be qualified to receive paid sick leave or FMLA as a result of COVID-19. So going back up here under paid leave entitlements, again, this applies to employers of 500 or less employees. So businesses with fewer than 500 employees, which is, I think, just probably everyone on this call. 100. So the big thing about this law is that you, as an employer, will be reimbursed from the federal government for any expenses resulting from paid sick leave or FMLA, and you have to, as long as you meet the criteria. And the way that's going to be reimbursed is through tax credits. And thank you, Paul Jacks was, I'm glad he's on the line, but he provided me with some information from the IRS because there was a lot of questions on how that reimbursement was going to take place. We knew it was tax credits. So I'm gonna look at a document, and it's a document that I could email out to everyone directly from the IRS. But looking at this, bullet point number 1, 100% of employees receive 100% of their salary or federal minimum wage for reasons number 1 through 3. So that's up to $511 daily or $5,110 total for the 80 hours of paid sick leave that they can receive according to this law. So if you read up here, the qualifications, employees can receive up to 2 weeks. That's 80 hours, or a part-time employee's 2-week equivalent of paid sick leave based on the higher of their regular rate of pay or the applicable state or federal minimum wage. So this is going back down to bullet point number 1, 100% for reasons number 1 through 3. And so that is an employee that is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine as a result of COVID-19, or number 2, has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine relating to COVID-19, or number 3, is experiencing coronavirus symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis. The way you treat this is the same way you treat any other paid sick leave situation or FMLA situation. And you can require, the doctor's notes and all those kinds of things. But they are guaranteed by law now that they receive, an employee receives this paid sick leave up to 2 weeks for those reasons. Bullet point number 3, 2/3 of their regular rate of pay they receive for reasons number 4 and 6 below. That's up to $200 daily or $2,000 in total for those 2 weeks. So number 4 is they're caring for an individual subject to an order described in number 1, or self-quarantined as described in number 2, or number 6 is experiencing any other substantial similar condition specified by the United States Department of Health and Human Services. So you'd have to kind of review those specified conditions. The bullet point number 3 is specific to Family Medical Leave Act. So the law requires our employers to provide up to 10 weeks of paid sick leave and expanded family medical leave pay at 2/3 for qualifying reason number 5. And that's $200 daily or $12,000 total for the 10 weeks. So qualifying reason number 5 is that the employee is caring for his or her child whose school or place of care is closed due to coronavirus, which falls under the executive order of the governor. So there is a for small businesses that have 50 or less employees, they do qualify for exemption from this FMLA bullet point here, but you have to document the reasons why exemption is necessary to prevent financial hardship for your business. I hope that makes sense. That is the what we're being told. Is that the small business, if you have 50 or less employees and you want to seek exemption from the FMLA requirement, bullet number 3, you have to document the reasons exactly why your business would face hardship if you were to provide that extended FMLA to an employee. You don't have to provide, at this point at least, you don't have to provide that documentation to the Department of Labor, but there may be a time in the future when the Department of Labor will seek that documentation and request one to know why you requested exemption from the FMLA part of this of the Act. So that's kind of a summary of this, what employees are guaranteed under this program. And if you go back here, if you click on the fact sheet for, again, in this e-blast that I sent out, fact sheet for employers, this is more detail than what you saw on that poster. And I would strongly encourage all of you to read through this and fully understand, because this is not a recommendation. This is now federal law. If an employee comes to work or calls you and says that they believe they have symptoms of coronavirus, you have to implement this paid sick leave policy. So please review this. This is going to impact probably everyone. So it's very important that you fully understand all this. Going to what I mentioned earlier, so under this act, the federal government will reimburse qualifying small businesses that have made expenses as a result of the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. So the question is, how does a business get reimbursed? Well, this is directly from the IRS. So I'm going to read through this for you. And if anyone wants a copy of this document, I can provide this. And Paul, I'm gonna probably unmute you in a minute here. So if you could prepare, but there might be some questions on this specifically. But my understanding, based on reading through the IRS documents, is that it will be, you will have immediate access to that finances by way of payroll tax credits. So it says when employers pay their employees, they are required to withhold from their employees' paychecks federal income taxes and the employee's share of Social Security and Medicare taxes. The employers then are required to deposit these federal taxes along with their share of Social Security and Medicare taxes with the IRS and file quarterly payroll tax returns with the IRS. So many of you probably have a payroll company that does this for you, like Paychecks or ADP or PrimePay, one of those. So you're going to need to discuss this with your payroll company. Under the guidance that was released that will be released next week, eligible employers who pay qualifying sick or child care leave will be able to retain an amount of the payroll taxes equal to the amount of qualifying sick and child care leave that they paid under the coronavirus Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act, rather than deposit the money with the IRS. So basically, an example of that, you can see down below. If an eligible employer paid $5,000 in sick leave and is otherwise required to deposit $8,000 in payroll taxes for a month, including taxes withheld from all its employees, the employer could use up to $5,000 of the $8,000 of taxes it was going to deposit for making qualified leave payments. So simply, you don't have to deposit that money with the IRS like you normally would. Instead, you would use that money directly to pay your staff who's on paid sick leave, who falls under the criteria of the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act. Hope that makes sense for everyone. But Paul, if you don't mind, Paul, I'm going to unmute you if you'd like to add anything to my explanation there. Okay. So I'm going to take any questions on that because that's a lot. Jessica, do you see any questions?
I don't think the chat feature is working.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to look at the raised hands. And let's see. Jennifer Sullivan, do you have your hand raised?
No, that's still from last time.
Okay.
If you can call on Renee from MI Custom Signs, he's got, I think, a question.
Okay. Renee, you're unmuted.
Thank you. So there was, I've been typing questions and I don't know how to direct them to the admin. I even tried add admin and that didn't seem to do anything. Number one, I did not receive the email that you're referencing on here. And so I need to check on that. Hopefully it's not something embarrassing like I forgot to pay the bill.
No, it's actually, I can tell you, Renee, for some reason your emails keep bouncing back. So if there's any way you can email me like a Gmail account or a personal email, then I can respond to you.
Okay, will do. So where was my question? It was actually a while back. So well, on this one, the Familiesfirst thing, I'm a little confused because they're saying, I mean, doesn't the fact that the state is under a quarantine or a stay-at-home order, isn't pretty much every employee then eligible for 2 weeks pay? I mean, am I reading that wrong?
Essentially, yeah, you're right. Since the date that this was enacted, I mean this is a federal law, so not every state is in the same situation we are. But that's the way I understand it.
Right.
So then regardless of whether we apply for a loan or a grant or whatever, we are supposed, if we have a payroll coming up and it's a 2-week payroll, I'm supposed to just pay everyone whether they've been working or not.
Well, here's the other thing, Renee, is that this does not go into effect until April 1st.
Okay.
So if you had employees that were put on temporary leave prior to April 1st, my understanding, and I don't know, I mean, Paul or somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that they don't fall under this because this goes into effect on April 1st.
That's
Okay,
exactly
so,
my understanding too, Ron.
all right.
Was that Paul?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. In fact, that's on the Small Business Association of Michigan. There's a document I downloaded over the weekend that they were under that opinion as well.
Okay, so in our case, as soon as we got the stay-at-home order, we just told everyone go home and apply for unemployment, and we'll figure it out later. I mean, and so they did that, and I'm trying to figure out if I should call them back or how do I pay people who are on unemployment. I mean, there's just that. I guess some of this may fall, to my accountant in the payroll department. Or the payroll service that we use to answer these questions, but it seems like starting Wednesday, then they would automatically be dumped onto a leave, a medical leave, and from that point on, anyway, they would be eligible for this under this particular provision.
Yeah, and you're right, Renee. I mean, a lot of these questions will be specific to your business, depending on what you did the past 2 weeks.
Okay.
So you'll want to follow up with your accountants, and your payroll company, organizations like that. But I can tell you what I know, and that's this goes into effect April 1st. And if you have employees on temporary leave prior to that, that they're on temporary leave, so it's a different situation. But now, if you're going, if you're looking to get a loan through the CARES Act, obviously you're going to want to be bringing those people back on your payroll. So now you're in a different situation. So I would recommend you do contact your CPA and your payroll company and see if you can get specific answers based on your unique situation.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Just to take the example one step further, if you, let's say, pay $10,000 in sick leave and you're only required to deposit $8,000 in employer payroll taxes, then the additional $2,000 would be a refundable credit when you file your quarterly payroll tax return for June 30th. So in essence, any of the payments that you make under this mandatory sick or family leave come back either in the form of reduction of your current payroll taxes due, and then if the amounts you paid exceed the amount of the payroll taxes that you're supposed to deposit, then you're eligible for a refund, but that won't come until after you file the June 30th quarterly payroll tax return.
Okay, I see. So the first 10,000 is refundable through the payroll taxes reimbursement, but anything over that they're not addressing?
There's two limits on this sick and family leave. One applies for the sick leave and the other applies for the family leave. But if you're paying employees under either one of those, the amount that you pay in wages is a direct dollar for dollar offset against any payroll taxes that you have to deposit for federal withholding and employer and employee Social Security and Medicare. If the amount that you pay under either one of those programs exceeds the amount that you're required to deposit in payroll taxes, then you get that back as a refund on when you file your quarterly payroll tax return in June.
Right. But, so in essence, on future payroll taxes.
Yeah, on future payroll tax. But the sick leave has a maximum amount, and I believe that's 2 weeks. The family leave, I believe, can go up to a maximum of $10,000 in payroll, and the amounts eligible to be paid under the sick leave differ than the amounts that are paid under the family leave. And you have to determine which category your employee falls into for that sick and family leave, sick and or family leave program.
Okay. I will have to just read up on it a little more thoroughly, but I guess the scenario I'm playing through in my mind is if you have a 2-week payroll period that happens after April 1st, that exceeds, that says goes to $20,000, then only 10,000 of that's refundable through the payroll taxes. What happens the other 10?
If all of that 20,000 that you're paying is under either the Sick Leave Act or the Family Leave Act, it qualifies for sick or family leave, then that 20,000 that you've paid will first go to offset any payroll taxes that you've got due under those wages that you've paid, and then any excess that you paid in of the sick or family leave over the payroll taxes, you'll be eligible for a refund, but that refund is not going to come to you until you file your quarterly payroll tax return that's due at the end of July for June 30th.
So there's not a $10,000 limit then?
There is a $10,000 limit of eligible family leave wages to be paid. That's the maximum per employee, and there's a time limit or a time frame as well. And that's where you have to determine which area that you're paying the employee for. Are you paying for the sick leave, or are you paying for the family leave? The sick leave is up to 2 weeks, and I believe it's like $515 per week. And then the family leave is like $200 a week, and it goes up, or it may be per day. Yeah, I believe it's per day. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the total family leave, I think, can go up to a maximum of $10,000. But going back to the sick pay, I believe the sick pay only applies on the first 2 weeks or 80 hours of sick pay at whatever rate that they qualify for under the sick pay program.
Okay. Okay, Renee, I'm going to I have a couple other questions here.
I get it. Thank you.
No, that's okay. Thanks. Sorry. So now we have Brian Loringer, who is unmuted. And Brian, you'll have to unmute yourself. There
Okay,
we go.
I think I just did. All right.
Here we go.
My question is, where can we get the items that we need to post at our businesses? And also the list of questions that we need to ask either employees or customers as they're coming in the door.
So you can actually get that through this e-blast that I have. I'm looking right in front of me. So what I can do is I can email that directly to you.
That would be great.
Or if you want to send me an email on to you.
Is that the SWC with your name?
Yes. Yep.
Yes,
It's
okay.
R Hendrix. Yeah, rhendrix@swcrc.com. Send me an email and I'll forward this to you.
Okay, that'd be great. And then one other thing. Now, the page that I got for the employees' rights for the Familiesfirst Coronavirus Response Act shows that it's in the third part in the paid leave entitlements. It says up to 12 weeks instead of 10. Is there a different? Because now the version of mine says revised 03 of 20 at the very bottom right corner.
Let's see. So I'm taking a look at the. This is the United States Department of Labor Hour and Wage Division website. So whatever is on here would be the accurate number. Let's see if we can find it here. It says right here, up to an additional 10 weeks of paid expanded family and medical leave at 2/3 the employee's regular rate of pay. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I got this one. Okay.
Well, this one is directly from the Department of Labor.
Okay.
Yep. So this is the one I would go by. You're welcome. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. I think I got Stephanie Bass. And you'll have to unmute yourself.
Hey, I'm not sure why that keeps coming up, but I didn't have a question. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yep, shows your hand was raised. Sorry. And it looks like that is everyone. So we're going to try to get through some more things and wrap this up. So looking at the next thing is employers contemplating potential layoffs. We've already seen a lot of this happen, but the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber has been strongly encouraging our members to not do permanent layoffs, if at all possible. If you have to do layoffs, classify them as temporary or indefinite leaves. So the state of Michigan has given us specific guidance on how to do that. Because according to the governor's executive order, any employee that is laid off as a result of an executive order from the governor, or the result of economic hardship on a business, or closures resulting from an executive order from the governor in situations involving coronavirus, those employees are eligible for unemployment insurance under the executive order. So what you'll need to do is, if you click on this button here, it will take you to our chamber webpage where we'll have specific information on the work share program and then temporary leave versus termination. These links take you directly to fact sheets and questions and answers, and will help you to go through the process of putting your employee on temporary leave if it's necessary. Then they will be eligible to apply for unemployment compensation. The big thing here is that temporary leave is an option where you're basically telling the employee you expect to have work available within 120 days. We think that it's important to keep employees in that category as opposed to terminating permanently. That would have a very bad impact on our economy, definitely on a state and a regional level. You can see here is a link to the exact executive order. Here's a link to the unemployment compensation notice that you would provide to an employee who's been put on temporary leave, and then also a link to a fact sheet, which will give you examples and detailed information on temporary leave. The other thing is the work share program is something that has been expanded under an executive order of the governor. The work share program is specifically designed to prevent layoffs. And the way it works is you can reduce an employee in a unit at your company. All employees within a unit has to be at least 2 employees. You can reduce their hours between 15% and 45%, and then they will be able to obtain a portion of their missed wages or lost wages from the unemployment insurance program. So it's a good option. I know that some employers have been utilizing the work share program to take care of their employees, but also reduce payroll expenses during this time. So if you want more information, again, that is located here, and there are specific instructions on how the employer can apply for work share and how to guide your employee through work share or temporary leave, if that's the route that your business needs to take. The next section here, I already talked about work share, but that's basically explaining what's happening with unemployment right now. The governor has, I think I might have actually already talked about this, but the governor has issued an executive order expanding unemployment benefits for employees that have been laid off resulting from government closures or basically the severe economic impact caused by coronavirus. So there's fact sheets that are available. There's unemployment resources that are available to help you as a business owner guide your employees through the unemployment benefit process. The other thing I want to mention is the fact that I think most people probably already know this, but penalty and interest on paying Michigan sales, use, and withholding taxes that were due on March 20th, that has been waived. And the sales, use, and withholding tax, again, due on March 20th, has been extended by 30 days. So you can read the exact executive order here, and you can find more information on that. And then also, I just want to kind of briefly mention the last thing is that Wayne County does have a coronavirus hotline that, is available to employees and employers, and that is through one of our members, the Information Center located in Taylor. The hotline is here, and so if you need more information to help guide your employees, you can, of course, contact the hotline, or you can reach out to the chamber via email. So that's going to wrap it up. That was a 2-hour webinar, a lot of information, of course, that we covered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly look through to see if there's any more hands that have been raised.